can't be mortals.
Welcome, mere mortalites, to another episode of the Mere Mortal Musings. You have two mere mortals here. You've got Kyron on this side,
You've got one on the other side.
and we are live now on a Wednesday, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. You know the biz. We're always here at this time, so we would love you to come join us. Maybe it'll change in the future, but for the moment, it's the same. And a Musings episode is where we dive deeper into a particular topic, give our practical thoughts, ideas on something that is happening within our lives and expanding upon that. I chose today's topic because I thought it was rather pertinent. We've been hinting at it over the last couple of weeks on some updates and some upgrades to the mere mortals. What's going on with all the different podcasts that were going on, maybe the mere mortal brand. We had a kind of episode like this probably. Do you remember how long ago that was, Juan? Maybe like 6 months ago. I think it was around episode 400, 401, maybe something like
I
that.
don't remember them by the numbers anymore, but something like between 6 months to a year.
Yeah, for sure. So just for your interest as well, today is the 20th of December, a Wednesday. So look, I've got a couple of different starting points that I think we could start off with. Probably the best one would be maybe just general strategy, overall philosophy of the mere mortals. Someone might be coming in new. I on how would I say, onboarded. I told someone today in the gym about the podcast, and she seemed like, oh yeah, I've got a lot of time to spare when she's doing her treks in and out of wherever she drives to from work. So might be best to like give a an overview again of the mere mortals, what we're about, what we do. So do you want to give me your latest version of what you think that is?
Yeah, I'd probably say it has changed quite a bit over the years and even the last few months, I reckon, when I'm talking about it with people. I had a similar experience with someone was asking me once again, what's the podcast about? What do we do? I think we talk through different topics, variety of topics, leaning towards an effective philosophy of taking action, underpinning it with a lot of our day-to-day life experiences, trying to relate it to other mere mortals. I'd probably say something along that nature is where the podcast currently sits.
Yep, pretty similar to me. It's very hard to give a theme because everyone that I've talked to seems to come up with a different theme for us. Some people think we're very much self-development because you'll see that within the monthly goals. Yeah, definitely. You could say that. Others are more philosophy. Others are more the fitness aspect, and we do touch upon all of those things. So I think it is best to keep it as it's a wide ranging in terms of topics, but the style and the delivery of them, I think, is what maybe sets the tone or what sets it apart. Which was, as you mentioned, like we're trying to apply these ideas or things that are happening from everyday life, and even vice versa, where it'll be a thing that's happened in our everyday life, and like let's expand upon that and look at it in a broader context. So this is where you might have something like as innocent as I recently did a body scan at the gym that I'm at, and I think that is kind of cool. Where it could be like, oh, we could do an episode on kind of body composition, and I'd know this would be good for you because you've done bodybuilding before. I've noticed changes just with myself over the years of different things I've tried. So it's also the opposite way, where it's not just like a big grand idea and bring it down to the mere mortals world of the real life, but it's also a real life thing, and let's expand it the other way and see what's if there's anything interesting behind that.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like just strategy and philosophy of, I guess, the overall podcast, I think I've nailed it down to this almost like crucial point, which is it just needs to be sustainable output that can be done for years, if not decades. And if you tune into like the biggest podcasters out there, or at least the ones who've been going on for the longest time, they talk about sustainability. It not only just in terms of like, obviously they've been around for ages, so they'll talk about sustainability, but in terms of growing the show, it's like if you want to grow your podcast, you have to be sustainable and consistent with an output, and whether that be once a week or multiple times a week or even just like once a month, it needs to have that aspect to it. And then going on from that, for me, it like therefore needs to be fun. So it needs to be something that I'm looking forward to each Wednesday. It doesn't have to be like every Wednesday I'm like giddy over the moon, but it does have to be something where it's like, okay, yeah, sweet, it's time to tie the shoelaces, the running shoes, the mere mortals to and the equivalent of that would be like, I don't know, typing on the computer, being like, all right, let's get ready. Like I'm doing the social posts, that sort of thing. And I need to be looking forward to that. So that I suppose is the core aspect, which then deviates slightly from what you'll hear from people like Gary Vee, which is like you need to be providing value. That's the biggest aspect of what you need to do. And I think there's a little bit of tension there still because we also that I wouldn't say that's our main focus. I don't come into each episode being like, how can I provide the most value to a listener, a supporter, a fan at home? What how do you address that? I guess like a little bit of an imbalance that we've got going on there.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of points. One, I think I disagree about the sustainability now.
Okay.
That view for in that I don't disagree of it, but I just don't think that it is enough. And I think there's going to be another aspect to, and podcasting in general, and I'm starting to see that in myself, anyways. It's there's got to be a reward for a human, right? At the mere mortal end, you got to have a reward for the things that you're doing. Yes, you can say go and do 15 years worth of podcasts and release one every single year. One every single week, and you're consistent. But if at the end of those 15 years, you don't get rewarded in a maybe monetary way, financial way,
Are you
or you're
talking
not
about as a
rewarded.
podcaster or as a listener here?
No, as a podcaster. So that's
Okay.
us, us doing the podcast. If we were to
Okay.
do this for the next 15 years,
Yeah.
and there was no reward that we got at the end of it, aka financially or from a fun perspective, like joy of doing it, learning, insights, just trying something new. If you really got to the end of those 15 years, you went, didn't really get anything out of it in whatever aspect that you want to kind of attribute that to, then even though there was the consistency, it might not actually eventuate to anything that you actually wanted. And so, in that regard, it's probably not enough, even if you have the consistency. Now, I'm not saying that, okay, do away with it altogether. You probably still need the consistency to achieve a lot of those other things that you want to get that particular reward. But on one side of it, I think I've not deviated away. I think across the board, I go, yeah, there's going to be a reward to what we're doing. And as we probably talk about a little bit later, there's the value that we're putting out and the value that we also want to be actually getting in return. But I think consistency on its own is not enough. You do definitely need to get some reward out of it as a human, as a podcaster, for me included. So, as you said, if I come into a conversation on a Wednesday, I don't want it to be, oh, I've got to sit down for an hour and I've got to go do this. There's got to be some genuine, okay, maybe I've got ideas that I want to try and play around with. Let's figure it out. It's a chance to connect and have a conversation about the podcast. It might be a interview or doing mere mortals in motion. There's got to be reasons, rewards that I find, I guess, innate to doing it, beyond just maybe the externals that I get, because I can't control that. So I just go, there's a extra that I would put in apart from the consistency. And then on the other end of the Gary V piece on you have to be providing value. I mean, I do think that you do. I don't think that we're great at it in the direct sense that we don't really talk about it and say, hey, Mere Mortal Light number 17, he'd really appreciate if we talked about this. Or, Mere Mortal Light 92, I think if we talked about this and got this potential person for an interview, it really helped them out. No, we don't do that. But I think we indirectly do provide that value in some way, shapes, or form, because we've been told over the last few years in different ways, oh, hey, I really appreciate you guys talking about X, or being really upfront and talking really honestly about whatever. And I go, okay. So we're obviously providing some sort of value. It's just maybe not at the forefront of our minds when we're talking about, we're having conversations like these, or maybe some of the other ones.
Yeah. Okay. So just on those two things, the first that comes to my mind was, what I get out of it. To be consistent, you do have to have some sort of reward mechanism. There's unless you're playing like the martyr and your reward is this deep inner satisfaction of knowing that you've done this thing for a decade, which might be enough. Certainly not for me. Like I can think of tons of other things where I could do the same thing for a decade and maybe find some satisfaction from that. Do I actually love the process of fiddling around and doing social posts? No, the social post is not intrinsically giving enough from that. But I do think that it has to be whatever we get out of it. It probably has to be something. The main 2, 3, maybe even 4 would be non-monetary things, and then so it would be being able to see Juan every weekend when he's every week when he's super busy, has baby, and now we live 25, 30 minutes apart. Being able to connect with people around the world, and potentially if I like fly into Canada, it'll be like, oh, I could go see Peter. That would be super cool. That valuable sort of thing. Being shaped and molded by the people at home as well, for us as well. So it's kind of like all of those things, and then yes, receiving monetary reward would be an aspect of that as well. I think just with what our plans are, and we're talking about what would we like to do this year. At least my yearly goal was, one of them was to provide more value for the podcast, and therefore grow it, and do it in that particular order. So not grow it and then try and put more value in. It's very much like providing something valuable. I do think we have maybe strayed from that a little bit in the last, I don't know, 6 months ish. There's certainly some episodes where I go back and I'm like, talking out of my ass a little bit there. Or we just, even though we're prepped as we normally do, we could have prepped perhaps a bit better. And I do want to experiment with some different ways of trying out, perhaps doing a bit more prep beforehand, of seeing your notes. I know you don't particularly take notes, but that you could just send me an audio of what you were thinking. And because one of the things, for example, I like doing with the conversations is, I've got this one coming up on Friday with a value for value musician, and I'm doing my research, a couple of interviews that he's done, listening to his own podcast and stories, and I know he's got a whole like back catalog of YouTube performances of him and his family, the Dorfels, when they were like from the like the last decade and a half maybe of them playing. And I really enjoy the ability of like constructing my series of questions in a way that I think will make the conversation flow. And I think that's perhaps something we could do a little bit better, because we both come in with our individual notes, and I think sometimes it might not gel as good as it could be. So, but yeah, that was just the part of the general strategy and philosophy. When talk a little bit more about perhaps how we can individual shows make them better as well.
Yeah, I mean, kind of sliding off that particular topic, right? I think you're right in the sense of, over the last few months, from a mere mortals podcast perspective, and the many things that we're doing, honestly,
Well, look,
let's
we're
be
both, we're both.
well, let's
we're
also
both,
be realistic as well, right? Like, we've had other shit to deal with, and
correct.
to be honest, like, I'm going to be frank out there, mere mortalites, this isn't the number one thing in my life, so I'm going to put that right out there. So, had things in life been different or whatnot, look, I do enjoy it for all the reasons. There's lots of reasons I can list it out, but let's be honest, if I needed to, I'll just, like, next week be like, cool, done, that's it, not doing one ever again, because I've got other priorities. That's just how the cookie crumbles. If this was for some reason like the pinnacle thing, the only thing holding me together in doing a lot of things, okay, well, it would be a lot more difficult to do that. I've got the flexibility and the time and the money to do all these sort of things. Fantastic. So there's a lot of benefits I get from doing the podcast that are just innate, etc. But definitely on the value, because I do agree with that too. We kind of need to add more value to then grow the show, as opposed to grow the show, get the feelers out, pay for marketing, all that sort of stuff, if there's no intrinsic value for a lot of people to get out there. So before this podcast, I did a little bit of research. I went back, Chris Williamson from Modern Wisdom. So I went back to his very first podcast on YouTube, and it was 5 years ago.
James Clear, was it?
Hey?
James Clear, wasn't it?
No.
There's an author, I'm pretty sure.
Although maybe the first one, maybe the first like official podcast with James Clear, but on YouTube at the very least, the one numbered 001 was with a Marine friend of his who was planning on rowing across the Atlantic.
Okay.
Can't remember his name, but it was something about that. Now, it gave me the vibes of, Mere Mortals 1.0. It was basically him and at home. They had one microphone between the two of them. Dude, nice. We had two microphones. They had one microphone for both of them. Noise was shit. Video quality was shit. But it was a person. Like, he was interviewing. It was a conversation. a couple of things stuck out for me. One, he was quite good at the conversational aspect and at the asking questions and letting someone else kind of talk and share the story, so that you could see, there's some key kernel of like goodness in there already, even if everything else is like crappy quality. But the other bit that I sort of noticed in seeing that is, I went through, I think it was like 2 year period, just quickly kind of flicking through, and very quickly he started getting quite a lot of followers. Obviously, people watching the videos, probably the same thing on the audio, and he was getting a lot of, at least from how I'm going to interpret this, he was getting a lot of value for, I guess, his audience by getting a lot of people who seemed to be, you know, something that people were willing or wanting to hear, right? And so this was, I believe, he got an interview with Dave Castro really early. Then after that, he got interviews with a lot of people who, generally people would say like, oh man, they're hard to like get to. And obviously those conversations are interesting to people, right? And interest all drives value. Maybe the conversation might be kind of shit, but people are going to be driven to listen to an interview if it's something that they might find interesting or valuable. I'll give you another example. Trevor Noah started a podcast over on Spotify, like exclusive. First episode I had was with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. And dude, I was like, man, I'm going to listen to this because I enjoy getting the content from The Rock. He barely puts anything out long content. It was like an hour plus conversation. Fucking oath. I'm gonna go listen to this. So there's value to that. And I guess so looking at that, reflecting on, I guess, what he was doing, I kind of went, and we've talked about this slightly, and so this is the first, like, what are we going to do about it, or what are some of the changes? We've kind of noted it down a few times, but I think you're going to be seeing a lot more conversations coming to play. And it's probably going to be an interesting style where you, and the way you just expressed it, you're going to go down the path of really putting those well-placed questions, doing your research, asking them in the right way to get value for people.
Yeah,
Where, man,
kind of half. Yeah.
Half, okay. Where I'm kind of leaning towards more of the more fluid, more conversation, less, example of a Lakes Friedman of question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. I think I want to play around with very open, know the person that I'm sitting in front of, but just let the conversation kind of just go meander wherever I really want it to go. And whether it goes long or short, just let it do. But I think, short piece there. I think you're going to see a lot more conversations coming from the Mere Mortals podcast. Would you agree with that, Karen?
Yeah. Yes, for sure. So the two things with that, man, I had all my notes like really nicely lined up, and then this is where Juan's just shitting over them because there's like 3 different things I want to come out with that.
Touch on.
So yeah, for me, definitely more conversations. I was having a reflection recently on what are the ones I really enjoy doing the most and have gotten the most value out for myself and kind of the show at the same time. So I look at 2 different ones. One would be one like Sir Spencer. So he's a guy, no one really knows outside of the value for value world, but he's done some really cool things. Doing the first music album, put out as a podcast. I'm sure it's been done before, but it was the first like real proper one with all the tags and all the cool stuff, and was the first guy who went lit on the podcasting apps and things like this. And I compare him, and we get a really good response from that kind of episode because we're very much into the value for value world, and so other people in the value for value world love that. And then there'd be one like Mikhail Christensen, who, elite world level hand balancer. I followed him for a pretty long time. I have a lot of inherent interest in wanting to talk to him, but the difference between those two I can really feel, because one is someone who I don't know. It's essentially a cold call. Mikhail, like, I'd never really interacted with him before. And then Sir Spencer, who I'd sent messages with. I'd heard his name before. He'd heard mine, and this sort of thing. And do you know who Peter Singer is?
Yes. The Australian, right?
Yeah. So he's an Australian philosopher. He was one of the people who kind of started the, I suppose, what would you call it? Like animal movement or caring about animals in the, I'm going to say like 1960s, 70s, maybe. I believe he wrote a book called Animal Liberation. And so he's been very much against, cruelty against animals, testing on animals for pharmaceutical products, all this sort of thing. And He's done other kind of like philosophical work as well related to effective altruism and charity giving, things like this. I reached out to him once, and it was after I read one of his books. I've read a couple of them. If you go into the book reviews, you can check them out. And I did get a response back from him, and he was just like, I have a lot of commitments and things. So I'm sorry, I can't. And I was like, okay, that's all right. I'll maybe reach out in the future again. And this is one of those ones where I could see, like, if I messaged him every 4 months apart for 2 or 3 years, I'm sure he'd cave at some point and be like, all right, this guy really wants me on. I'll come onto the podcast.
Hmm.
And I just think, like, with the way that I do things, that would be just such an unsustainably hard model to kind of run. And this is why I'm so impressed with people like Chris Williamson, because he can do this sort of thing where, to get on a really big guest, you have to do this back and forth thing. That's just part of the game. But to prepare for that, you never really know when you're going to get your preparation. So whereas for me, I can be like, all right, I'll listen to like a whole bunch of this stuff. This is what I'm into at the moment. I'm listening to really into like value for value music, what's going on there. I can then get on a guest, and it's like all the questions are like front of mind. I know exactly roughly what I want to say. I could come into it completely unprepared and still have a decent crack at it. Whereas with Peter Singer, it'd be like, oh shit, I really would have loved to have read one of his books recently before that to be able to talk about his style or things like this. So yeah, all this is just a long way of saying I'm probably going to focus much more on value for value, the value for value world, and people doing things in it. One, because I do think that is like a trend which is just going to keep getting bigger. But it's also just more aligned with my interests, and honestly, just in terms of scheduling and things like that, is kind of the way I want to go. I'd love to have a chat with Peter Singer after I'd read one of his books or two of his books, but not 2 years later,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
then trying to get that. But also having guests on who I can have on as a repeat, and that's kind of an important thing for me as well. I definitely want to focus on people who I can have on, like Pete from Aussie English or Alexander Watanabe, who are not necessarily value for value, but who I'd really want to get on again, and then them I could just chat easily with. So yeah,
Yeah.
probably
No, it's interesting.
that was a
It's
bit of a
interesting.
rant, and there's another thing related to live, but I'll let you speak.
Yeah, no. It's interesting in the sense of, once again, it smacks me sometimes how different we are in some regards. The way that you were articulating that, you know, as some sort of stories running on my mind, being like, "Fuck that, man! Fuck doing this just specifically like that, not doing anything else. Why wouldn't you do it a conversation?" But as you then kept going, I was like, yeah, "See, again, mere mortals. We're mere mortals here. The podcast, we're going to do different things, and I think it is very different. We've been talking about Chris Williamson. Yeah, he's one person, and he's always going to do it a particular way. Same thing with Andrew Huberman. Same thing with Joe Rogan. Same thing, whoever. Pick
Well,
whatever
yeah,
podcaster.
yeah. So just to compare, so Joe Rogan's almost zero research. He gets the person in, can just chat with them, which works well for him because he's a really likable guy, and that's just essentially what he's been doing for his whole life. I don't have that chemistry with people off the bat. I definitely need to, if almost like get on their good side by wowing them with like a really well thought out initial question, more close akin to a Tim Ferriss type deal where he'll come in with a whole bunch of preparation and be able to get someone out of their interview mindset or whatever it is that they're thinking, like, oh, it's just another podcast, by asking them a really well thought out question that they'd never had before, and then they're like, oh, okay, this is actually something I need to pay attention to, like actually be present for. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it'll be. I guess summary on that point. We're saying, look, one of the things to look ahead for the mere mortal. I think we're going to have more
So
conversations.
you want people to have people on who already in real life? Is that what I was hearing?
So what will begin? So giving you a bit of an insight into probably what's coming from my side at the very least. There is, let me get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. 6 people that I know fairly well enough that I could have a conversation with them day to day. It's not like I wouldn't be able to. It's no cold start. Let's just say. one which would be a repeat as well, who I want to have live in the new studio with the full setup for more of a conversation style podcast. And genuinely from there, what I think I want to do, because you call it out, it's much harder when it's a cold approach, right? Whether it's in the dating world, whether it's in a business sense, whether it's just interacting with someone, cold is kind of hard. I want to leverage those sort of initial ones in terms of the conversation to, hey, can you help me go and connect with this other person, do the warm introduction, and then kind of move on from there with two lenses. One, I'm hoping to bring value to people in having conversations with some people who genuinely I think would be valuable, but also barely have any particular like podcast or long form conversations. And two, I would find value because I would just find it entertaining to talk about these varying degrees of things. So that's kind of like the approach that I'm looking to do at the very least at the start of next year.
Yep, cool. So yeah, agreed. Both of us want to do more conversations wise. Let's just jump back onto the strategy / philosophy for a little bit before getting onto like maybe some things related to live and actual content. Video. So if you're in our Discord, you'll see that Juan's posted a couple of screenshots. If you're looking right now, his video is looking a little bit neater than previously. What were your plans, thoughts for that? What do you want to do that for that? Has anything changed in the last 6 months since we did that video where we talked about video a lot?
Yeah, maybe a slight update. I've gone on to go, you know what? I really, well, I kind of said this before. I want to kind of double down on the video aspect of it. And so, of course, in one of the decisions of getting the house that I'm in currently to have a space to be able to do that, I've purchased $300 odd worth of light equipment to kind of set up properly the space as well and all of these things. So video is definitely making a strong proponent to what I'm making. To give you a direct example, Mere Mortal Lights. The day before yesterday, I was doing a baseline for the powerlifting phase for the Mere Mortals in Motion, and I recorded it. I used a camera. I was thinking, do I use a second camera for something? And I was rushed. I think I was. You'll find this funny because my partner finds it funny.
Rushed.
Before I did the recording, I was messing around a scammer on the phone for 10 minutes because they called me, and I was just playing them on for 10 minutes. But you know what happened towards the tail end of it? I kind of got myself annoyed in talking to this person. Anyways, I hung up and I was like, oh, whatever, I'm out of it. I'm going to do this particular recording, right? And so it put me in such a bad state in doing it that I finished it. I felt like bad about it. It was kind of towards the end of the day. I couldn't really check it out properly. I went upstairs and I was just like frustrated. I went, I'm deleting this. I'm deleting this. I'm deleting the audio. I'm doing it again. So yesterday I redid it again. Same light setup, same camera setup and all that. Felt a lot better. I was like, yeah, this is good. I'm really glad I redid this. But then I checked as I started doing a little bit of editing. And honestly, dude, I compared the previous Mere Mortals in Motion stuff that I'd been doing, especially the very last one, which was a summary of the running phase. And I looked at what I was putting together and the quality difference for one. And the joy.
Is it higher now?
It is higher. God
Okay.
damn, it's higher. Wow. So the quality level, honestly, as comparable to something of a Modern Wisdom, Chris Williamson style. So I was like, man, that made me really happy.
Big talk.
But two, it made it really joyful to edit. And so what I would have normally done for the edit in terms of putting together, I'm not talking about the audio, although I did some stuff on the audio front, but from the video, I went next level, like a little step further beyond. So I've created masking on the sides, text coming through, and a square box for where my face is for some of the quotes and stuff like that. Fun. And it was fun. It was genuinely, I haven't finished it all yet, but it made me go, hey, that was pretty fun. Even if the result for this is 3 extra views, I'm happy for the reward that I've obtained in going for a heavier quality path for videos. Will it be the same always? Again, if I do this for 9 months and there's absolutely no benefit to anyone and I start losing that reward feeling of the joy, okay, maybe I'll pull it back. But for now, yeah, I'm definitely doubling down on getting the good quality content creation for video, but at the same time improving the audio side of things as well.
Okay. For me, you heard me last time where I was saying like I'm going to put less effort into the video, and you can really see that. For example, if you go to any of these ones, you'll see because Riverside still doesn't want to change their encoding. We've got these two big black bars both above and below us. And, I used to hate that. So I would individually take these recordings, mash them together in Riverside, in Premiere Pro, and then just re-upload a whole new video. I don't do that anymore. There's no point to that. And so I'm very much kind of going towards the hybrid model now, which is for the mere mortals, basic. It needs to not add extra effort to my day to record and put out the long form video. And I am likely not going to do video for a lot of the conversations. It's just I just don't think it's really worth it. It hasn't. It's not worth it to me anymore. I don't think it's worth it to the people at home because they haven't been tuning into those ones. And there was just a couple of experiences like with Adam Curry recently. I didn't do video at all because I know he prefers not to. And it was a really nice experience doing just audio, just not having to look at the camera, not having to focus on other things. It kind of just made me go, I really enjoyed that more. I did enjoy that more. So I really need to think, because the only reason I kind of like video now is just for clips to be able to use for social media. That's the only kind of positive side I see for that. The value for value show, I won't do so that'll be an audio only experience, and I'll optimize for that. This one will kind of be a hybrid. I'll still do things, but it won't be that good. But then for the book reviews, that's one where I actually am optimizing for the video, and you can see that with the effort I put into like the different quotes, things appearing on the screens. I think there's still a whole lot more I can do for that, and I'm willing to go hard in the video for that one, and maybe optimize that more for the video than even the audio.
Here's a question for you, because just out of interest. So even these conversations that we're having now, or let's say an interview or conversation with Pete or anybody else, do you think it would be more beneficial to not have video? So just basically like it'd be like a phone call, you just hearing the audio and going back and forth on it?
Kinda. You do get some nice things related to the facial expressions when people are saying things. So there is that. But man, that one that I did with Adam Curry was a lot of fun, and I have had one or two others where it's been audio only as well. Uh, um, a good example of this is the one which I had with Alexander Watanabe recently, where his video was screwing up a lot. So about half the time there was video, and then half the time there wasn't. I enjoyed the portions more without the video, to be honest.
Yeah.
I found it easier to have a conversation.
That's
So
interesting.
so yeah,
It'd be interesting just for, I don't know, do other mere mortalites experience that? Because I'm like very polar opposite to that, and I don't know if it's because I've dealt with a lot of Zoom team calls business wise in my life, and so not that I hate them, I just go, man, I'm less entertained when I can't see the other human that I'm talking to, and I'll prefer, if I can, video over audio. If I can, in person over video. That's kind of like my go-to. But if you had to tell me I can only do conversations via audio only, I might have some aversion to just not doing conversations at all.
yeah, interesting. It might even just reflect in just real life. When I'm with someone on a date, for example, I find the optimal seating to be
You'll just call them.
yeah, just not even
Can you
meet them.
please just face the other way, and I'll just give you a call and we just talk that way?
It's kind of, man, because I prefer to sit on a square, so at 90-degree angle to each other, rather than face to face. I just find I don't know what it is, but I that it's probably just my eye contact. I find eye contact really it almost like stresses me out sometimes when I'm speaking, and I need to look all around. So it could just be that aspect as well. You kind of see this with like Lex Friedman as well, which is like when he's speaking, he'll be like looking anywhere but at the person, and then like tune in for 5 seconds, and then look out elsewhere. So it could just be that. Yeah, the only real advantage I just see to having a long form video is just an easy clickable YouTube link. That's the only real benefit I see. But yeah, that was kind of just my thoughts on that. So potentially start seeing some gap, at least in the conversations playlist, where I think we've done pretty well. We've almost gotten to 100 with a video of that on YouTube, but
Mm.
yeah, I think some of those now I'll just be like, I don't see the point in this. I'd rather just keep it audio
Yeah,
audio
and
focused.
and I think that'll be interesting. I mean, it's sort of like we're running an A/B testing as we talk about this in the Mere Mortals podcast. Because what you'll see is, Karen will start doing less of those, and they'll be on the audio. I'll continue on and start putting more of those videos together. So
And
we're
that'll
kind
be
of like
different on the book reviews. I'll be going harder in on those, and
exactly. Although
for you
one
it'll be probably less because you're having to pre-record them, and I don't know. I don't know what
yeah,
your plans
exactly.
are
And
for
and
those.
like weird things that I've been seeing, and again, this goes to broaden it for people at home. I mean, it's nice when we got two people doing this and we're doing different things as well, because we're still at the stage of the Mere Mortals that we can play around, we can do things. If there was some specificity where, hey, we have to, or we if we really did this, it's going to be way more beneficial than not doing it. Okay, well, it takes away the fun out of it. One of the things I was expecting to see with your latest book reviews that have been going live was less video plays on the actual videos, because like I don't see them in the video list anymore on our YouTube, so you can't see them there directly. You have to actually go to the lives.
The live tab, yeah.
Yeah, but that hasn't been the case.
No,
Those
they've been
have
doing
actually been
better.
getting
Yeah,
lots more. So
yeah.
it's interesting to see what maybe my original
Even with
expectation was.
the audio sync is off. I'm going to test that tomorrow and try and fix that. But if you look at
Mm,
all of the recent ones, my audio is probably off by about 0.3 of a second or something.
right.
There's a noticeable lag, and it's just like, damn it. I think it's fixable, but yeah, it's interesting. Just where I would have said, in some cases, it's. I mean, like, what's different, right? Because I when I was pre-recording before, first of all, it was in 4K, so it was better quality in
Mm,
one instance. I was still doing the same thing of like the switching back and forth of in fact it had a couple more effects. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the thumbnails, maybe it's the way it starts off. You can kind of tell it's live, maybe. Yeah, who knows? But
mm,
yeah, it is good just to be able to do different things. The only thing where I don't like to be too willy nilly with is the audio for the Mere Mortals itself. That's the only thing where I want to try and keep that, because we've got a decent sized following there. I don't want to like accidentally stuff things up, or kind of put something out which is really kind of crappier quality. That's one I'm pretty particular with. But in
mm.
terms of just like videos on the Mere Mortals channel, it's like, yeah, like just chuck whatever you want on there. It doesn't really matter.
Mm.
Let's jump to the Boostagram Lounge. It'll be a short one anyway, and then we can talk
A
about
short one. I
the.
haven't actually been able to look at all this week. Is
Unfortunately,
is there a huge amount?
no. In fact, it's the exact opposite. There is not much going on at all. I don't think we received a single Boostagram, because I even went into the so the Boostagram Lounge, for those who don't know, is where we thank the people who are supporting us back from the listeners, supporters, fans, whatever you
Mhm.
want to call yourself, the Mere Mortalites, through a monetary payment to the Mere Mortals to help us pay for the videos that I'm not going to use as much anymore, for the audio hosting, for all the different things that we go on here, a kind of compensation for our time. And we ask that you do it through a podcasting app, and send in through a payment of Satoshis with a message attached. And yeah, normally we've got at least like a couple of people coming in, but this week I even checked
Sad puppies. Nothing.
I checked a lot of the stats. One thing it is worth calling out is with the, I never really call them out individually, because one, I won't necessarily be able to get everyone, because more people stream than boost in,
Mm,
and two, it's kind of, I feel like streaming is somewhat already meant to be a little bit anonymous, hence why you see the third biggest supporter on the Mere Mortals page is the Mere Mortalites, the kind of nameless collective, which is where I put all the streaming payments, as just a a way to show recognition that people are streaming
Mm.
in and thank them. But it's hard to do individually. But I did see probably as of 41 minutes ago, maybe even an hour ago, I did see Peter was streaming in. So thank you, Peter. Much
There
much
you
appreciated.
are.
Um,
There's some streams coming through. No
yeah.
specific Boostagram to call out this particular
No,
week.
I didn't see anything on the PayPal either. So it's perfect time for this to happen because it's like the update episode.
Mm.
It's like obviously the people at home are like, got to up your game, boys. You're not doing shit. So all right, we'll take that call. We'll call that. We'll raise. So yeah, we'll get into more of what we're doing. At PayPal there wasn't anything there either as well. So links down the bottom if you would prefer to support the show via that way. The live. Let's talk about live one. So
Mm.
what have your kind of experiences been with going live, doing it live like this? Not even necessarily live on YouTube, but just the live experience where it's kind of the one and done almost. Have you any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. And I've been playing around it in my mind, right? And for a long time, I think I've been averse to doing it live. And if I really have to think about it, I don't know if going live and then having the competing nature of there's people tuning in 5, 10, 15, 20, 100, whatever it may be, that then I might want to interact with kind of almost immediately versus actually doing what I'm wanting to be doing for that particular
Yeah,
podcast, book review, etc. I thought about it for the mere mortals in motion, right? I was thinking, yeah, cool. Maybe I'll do it live. That way I can do it directly. In fact, I bought a couple of cables so I could connect the camera that I've got to do better quality, and that way I could do it live and use all these things. And then part of me went, okay, no, I don't want to do that for the sake of if I get 6 people listening to this right now, right? And if they all were messaging and sending through, I would feel a slight distraction between going back and forth with them and typing away and trying to keep on going with what we're doing right now. And sure, people can do it. Of course, there's lots of like streamers and Twitches and whatever who do it, all this sort of stuff. I'm not good at that. I'm really not great at that multitasking of messaging other people while trying to hold a conversation in one particular stream. I tend to mess that up quite a bit. So I've kind of separated myself from that. But an aspect of me has thought, I used to do the mere mortal Monday moment and other like moment things where it was just me doing a live video and basically posting it almost immediately, something to that effect. One aspect that I've been thinking about doing is doing them live, and it could be on. I haven't really thought this fully through. It could be on YouTube. It could be on one of the social media platforms, right? Like an Instagram or whatever have you, and doing almost a when I'm doing a particular conversation, book review, mere mortals in motion, perhaps either a behind the scenes or an afterwards review type of style where I do go live, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. It's an extra piece of content of information that we're putting out there. But then the focus is just me interacting with someone who wants to come on and I'm talking about either what I've just done or what I'm about to do. That's probably the only way I could see myself going live. I I don't see myself doing right now any of the key things I'm doing with this. Well, obviously we're doing this live, but Mere Mortals in Motion or the book review, I don't know that I would be necessarily going live with them anytime soon. I don't foresee myself wanting to do that. But even more, if this particular podcast all of a sudden got like 1,000 people live tuning in, and there was lots of streaming comments going on, honestly, I'd be a bit not concerned, but I'd want to deal with it in some other way because I wouldn't want to be kind of tuned in on seeing all the commentary and trying to reply. But then I also wouldn't want to be just ignoring it completely and just having our own conversation.
yeah. It's a weird
There's a
dichotomy.
balance.
One loves his
Mm.
dichotomies. It is a weird one because I'll just give my little spiel here. So when we're first starting off, I thought about this and I was like, it's way too hectic to consider. There's just so much going on. Even and this is just technically speaking, you know, when I was trying to figure out like, oh my god, you can't just put in a HDMI cable or whatever they're called, HDMI cable into the computer from the video camera directly. You need to have this little plug-in thing, which I've got just down here out of sight. Even that was like, oh my god, this is so hard. And we're very much now that past that stage, and the whole reason we went live, or why I wanted us to go live, was to be able to do the boostergrams in a timely fashion. Because
Mm.
if you look to how it was before, we used to have these big gaps. So it used to be about, I think it was like a 7 and a 10-day difference between when episodes were getting released, because we would record them on a weekend and I would have them set up to be played in like a week's time, or maybe it was a shorter distance. Maybe it was uh, 4 and 7 or something like that. That's different now. I'm at the point where I'm really comfortable going live in terms of the technicals, audio. I've got most of that. I'm way more competent with Streamlabs and OBS, so I know how to do things technically. And uh, there's still a whole lot more I could do in terms of graphics, in terms of adding things and whatnot. But I'm at the point where it's like, this is really good. And what I've really noticed with the live stuff is it saves me so much time. I don't know what exactly it is between pre-recording, and then maybe it forces you to not be too analytical and trying to fix every little niche thing that's happening. And it forces you to do more prep and to do the prep well, so that when you go live, it looks good, it sounds good. But I've just noticed, like, I'm really comfortable at the moment doing, 2 live episodes a week. I'm going to add a third one in relatively soon. And even then, I'm like, I reckon I could do more if I wanted to. I think it would be possible to be going live like 4 or 5 times a week. And uh, the only real detriment I see to that is, like you mentioned, the distracting nature of it. I think with the book reviews, that's fine, because they're relatively short, so I can do my 20 minutes of the actual book review and then get on to any interactions that's going on. These ones, they're a little bit harder. Like, I'm very similar to you, which is I feel bad if someone's typing something in the chat and I don't get to it straight away. But and the multitasking aspect, if you go to one of the book reviews from like 2 weeks ago, I was in the swing doing things really good, and then I see Mere Mortals podcast in the chat. I can't hear any audio, and man, and this was Juan telling me he couldn't hear the
Mm.
audio, and man, it fucked my train of thinking up. I was like, oh god, like, what am I gonna do? Because I'm not recording this, so I'd have to download the video, add the audio to then be able to like repiece this
Mm.
all together. I had a bad experience 2 weeks prior with me doing a solo episode here, and something stuffed up, and the video didn't work for large portions of it. And you can hear it in there where I falter, and you can see my brain trying to still maintain some form of flow entertainment, but trying to work out, okay, what should I do here? Not helpful. One stooged me like an asshole,
Mm.
because
Now, I
it
will say
wasn't.
I couldn't hear him.
Yeah, yeah.
However, it was a localized problem.
Yes, very much. So absolutely stooged me with that. That's the kind of thing where it's like, that's a detriment. But I do think you can get better at that. I think you can learn to multitask, and it's just something that it's kind of it's a bit of a talent, yeah. But I think you can get better at it as well. So yeah, my general just thing is like, um I'm even thinking of doing the conversations live, just being able to put them out there, especially the ones that I'm doing virtually. Uh, I see no detriment to doing that, in the sense that if it stuffs up or if bad things happen, I'm kind of moving away from being like, oh, the video is now screwed up because they had internet lag, or I did, or someone started mowing, or this person, whatever,
Mm.
all the randomness that can happen during live interviews. I'm kind of just like, well, if I'm not really going to put the video out, I don't care about that anyway. I might just do it live, and if other people want to tune in, and this will get more into being able to go live on the actual podcasting apps in terms of
Mm.
audio wise. That's one of the things I'm kind of contemplating of doing, and just seeing how that goes.
Yeah. No, and I get it. I think a lot of what you've just mentioned there, going live with the conversations, and I could see some benefits to that as well, right? If you had, going live in a conversation and you had lots of people being able to interact and even ask questions and jump in, man, that would be valuable. I find like that would be really fun. Well, I think one aspect that stops me from doing it right now is also, going back to the reward system. I just don't see much rewards right now going live. Even the lives that we're doing right now.
Okay, yeah. This
Be,
might be the difference between you and me, because one of the rewards I see is I can have a really quick turnaround time in terms of
exactly.
putting everything out.
And that's what I was gonna.
I
And
can
that's
get
what I
it
was gonna.
out within an hour, which is
Exactly.
really
That's what I was gonna
nice.
say. There is reward for you in the sense of, hey, it cuts down editing time and what we turn around of it much quicker. Like, duh, there's obviousness to it.
Yeah.
But even me thinking and get us in, if I was to do a conversation now versus the time it takes to edit it, put it together, publish it, versus doing it live, I guess I still go. It doesn't feel like the reward of doing it live to get that extra benefit of a couple of hours is still worth it to me. I don't know what the other end of it is. However, that might change if I'm doing 5, 6 conversations a month. Oh, okay, that might be a bit of a different structure because I'm trying to go down the path of a better experience from a visual perspective. I don't think I'm going to be going live unless
Yeah, that makes
I
it
had the
much harder.
capability of doing a very clean, very good flicking between cameras and whatnot. And honestly, I've been investigating this. I could do it. There's those manual touchpads where you can kind of go
Yeah,
back and forth. But right now, that would mean me doing it, right?
it's a
Or I
lot of
hire
effort. Yeah.
someone to actually do that at the same time. So, it's probably still a little bit far away to do that. But, I would definitely wouldn't say for me, never say never for live. I just go, yeah, it's just not the time for it right now. At least I feel like there's no reward there yet for me pushing towards doing that in this moment.
Yeah, I think the thing with live as well is that I just see more opportunities to make it interesting. When I think of the podcast itself and the adding you've always been much more into like the graphics of things, like, oh, I could put this graphic, this could overlay, it'll go from like white to black with the fade out in this sort of manner. I've never really enjoyed any of that. I don't find that inherently interesting, whereas with the live, I do like that aspect. It's more like I don't like doing that post. Kind of just feels like, oh, like I've already done everything, but now I'm just adding more work onto it.
Mm.
Whereas with the live aspect, it's like, oh, I could have some audio playing in the pre-stream, flick down. I do actually quite enjoy when I'm doing the book reviews. I've got my little number pad here, and I switch between the scenes, and I've got probably about 12 scenes set up for all the different pictures and stuff that I want going on. I do actually enjoy that. I find that more fun than doing it than trying to do something like that post hand. I dislike
Mm.
that. So I actually enjoy the process
That's interesting.
of being able to. It's almost like play in the moment, which I do find much more enjoyable. So that's also like a little bit of an aspect to it as well.
Yeah, no,
Um,
good point. One other one, and I want to get your insights into this. Looking at other maybe aspirational podcasts or content creators out there, because one aspect of lives, just in general, if I see a live conversation or a live show or something like that, I'm unlikely to ever tune into that particular piece of content if I'm not there live for it. There was a thing that Gary Vee was doing this morning on his
yeah,
socials,
I
and
saw it. Yeah,
so that one he was doing it live, and
yeah.
I tuned
I
in
tune.
for 5 minutes, something like
Same
that,
here.
just to check
Yeah.
in what was going on. Cool, okay, whatever. I wouldn't. There's not even like in a million years am I gonna go back today and be like, oh, let me go and find that live if they posted it say on YouTube to go and re-listen to it. No way, I'm not. And I don't know what part of it. Maybe it's because it was live. I'm not in the moment. I'm not gonna rewatch that. I have a similar sense of if you were to have a conversation with somebody and you did it quote unquote like live and you posted it out just straight away, even though that the content might not change, part of my psyche goes, oh, that was live. I'm probably not going to watch it. It's just like it's not a piece of content I'm going to tune in. It doesn't feel as evergreen as a just posted content. And I know that sounds irrational,
Yeah.
but I wonder if other mere mortalites feel that way.
I kind of get what you mean. I think the difference between that is, what Gary had then was it was a completely like unscripted, just lots of dead airspace. Them looking, dicking around at things over here, and it's like, is the Facebook up? Is the Twitter? Whatever. Um, which definitely is. It's crappy product if you were just watching that after the fact. Yeah, it's like, oh well, you're not appreciating. You're a lot more tolerant of those sort of things when you're watching live. So what I'm more imagining is when I'm doing it live, it's like it it exists, and then it doesn't, and then it's just gone, and you can't see that unedited version one anymore because I won't put it out as a video. I won't put that out as the audio, and then the actual audio that I'll put out is one which is more polished, has any cuts or interruptions and things going at.
Hmm.
Because when you think about it, like in that case, what's the difference between me just recording one like normal? I do all my audio editing and then put it out. There is no difference, but I think the difference is maybe you're imagining there'll still be this kind of like crappier version existing somewhere.
Hmm.
Whereas for me, it's very much like, no, this is a one and done. uh if something, if when I had Sam Sethi on, we I accidentally pushed like a sore point of it's just like some bad things. Someone was bad mouthing him on the internet, and I was just curious as to what that was about. And it was a sore point for him, and we talked about it for like 10-15 minutes, but it was just like a shitty way to start a conversation. And so
Hmm.
I ended up just cutting it all out, and I think he might have asked me for it. I was going to do it anyway. That's the kind of thing where it's like you can tune into that live and hear that, but you're never going to hear that again. Like that's the sort of stuff that's just no one needs to hear that, um,
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
and recorded for prosperity. So yeah, that was just kind of my things. I'm certainly more for myself leaning in towards doing as much as I can live. Um, and even just like the scheduling portion of it, I really enjoy. Like I like being able to be 10 a.m. I'm gonna do this thing. It's just a really good time for me. I don't know if it's a good time. It's a good time for other portions of the world. I know Adam Curry listened in at some point. You can't be able to satiate everyone everywhere, so it's kind of nice also having like a 7 p.m. time slot for us, and then a 10 a.m. one for the book reviews.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that was just one of the things where I was like, yeah, doing. There would still be things we'd need to get better at. For example, for this one, so often when we start, you're looking at your phone and I'm distracted because I'm trying to do social posts and to like make sure the audio is coming through and that sort of stuff. That's one where it's like, yeah, okay, well, we need to improve that aspect if we are going to keep doing these live things to make it valuable for people to actually tune in live as well. So it's not just like dicking around. And yeah, I don't want to change the show content too much, but I think there's like a nice medium where you can get between interacting with the audience at home so that they enjoy tuning in live, but it's not all about the live experience at the same time. I think there's a happy medium to find.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And you know, we probably haven't uncovered it too much because we haven't had like an overwhelming amount of people coming into any of the lives that we've actually done. But it also can be interesting in the sense of I've tuned into a couple of Tim Ferriss's live things that he's done. To be honest, not very fun.
Yeah.
Not very
Yeah.
fun to listen to. Not super interesting. I thought I'd get more enjoyment out of it in comparison to some of the podcasts that he creates, right? And I go, you know what? I wouldn't really listen into a live stuff that he does, but I would listen into the podcast conversations. They seem to be better structured. So I don't know if something degrades out of the product by being live. I couldn't name you one content podcast out there that's better live than it is in live. I guess I would say, put it that way.
Yeah. That could just be an individual thing for you. And there's other aspects of why I enjoy doing it. Like I said, the quick turnaround time. It does actually encourage boosts more and more audience engagement. There is no doubt about that
Mm.
as well. So that's also partly playing into my mind. But I'd say for me, a lot of it, I do like the interactions with people. It is kind of fun to like, put a little chat in there, say hi to your mum when she's in the chat, and Lucas when he joins in. Uh, I don't thrive off that. I don't need to do that. Otherwise, we're listening to. You sent me a thing of Gary Vee talking about, what he would do if he was kind of starting out nowadays and was a nobody or something. And he was saying like, I'd probably be live streaming 12 hours a day. That's too much. I don't want to do that. that doesn't sound fun. But I could definitely see myself being like, 4 or 5 times a week doing something live. That would be fun. I would enjoy doing that. Having like a schedule, almost like I'm getting to a 9 to 5. The closest thing I'll have to that. All right, let's maybe just sum it all up in terms of just like content and actual things that are going to happen. So for the mere mortals, I definitely see more focus on the conversations, particularly V for V related for myself, but it'll probably be a third. To be honest, it'll be like a V for V person, someone who I can just have a casual conversation with, and like a specific person I've never talked to, like a cold approach, and those will kind of blend together as well. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for that. I'd really like the ability to do those live, and once again, like my plan is to be able to jingle the feed, be able to have a bit of control of that myself, so we can have this going live on the podcast apps at the same time and things like that. Uh, I don't know, meanderings like we used to do. I'd only really see us doing that perhaps for some clips, or maybe just like as a like, I don't know, once every 3 months or something. The whole process of getting out to South Bank and doing it outside, it is fun, but it is, man, it does take a lot of time. And then, like I mentioned, with the extra editing and stuff on top of that, for myself, it takes fucking ages. Takes a long time for those. So probably less of those. Even though we do, or if we do that, it's got to be like we have to optimize those ones for maximum clippage potential. So it's got to be, what's the latest hottest gossip and news and that sort of thing. And I don't know, it's okay, but any thoughts for yourself on the mere models before I jump onto the other two?
No, I think you've spot on with it. I mean, similarly with the meanderings, yeah, we might do them every now and again, and they were fun, but it does take a lot of effort in the current, space of time at the moment. So you're probably not going to see that.
Yeah, less.
And I guess, conversations wise, I just think you're going to see a hell of a lot more coming out. And at least from my side, it's going to be varied, hopefully more funner, cruisier conversations, if I had to call it that way, with an emphasis on honestly, I'd say almost a cinematic look to them.
Oh, there you go. All right, I'm keen to see that.
Mm-hmm.
The other two shows that I do that are mostly mine, the Mere Models book reviews and the Value for Value. My focus for them too is going to be really on collaborations. I really want to try and up the ante in terms of one of the great things about getting on guests like Chris Williamson has done is you just get their audience coming to you as well. So this is how they can grow their shows to these massive things. That's one of the things, like, honestly, if I wouldn't go back and do it differently, but I know that has been in my mind for the biggest time. Like, what's one of the things that's really limiting our potential? One, we don't talk about news or random current politics, so that's like one way to get people in. And then the other, I think, is having guests on and their audience follows you, and we don't really do either of those. So that's just is what it is. But I want to do a variation of that, is doing more collaborations in terms of you've seen it with the book reviews where Cole's doing some voice acting. This music artist TJ, I want to basically get his permission to perhaps use his music as new intro music for us, or be able to put on like the live stream beforehand, after the live stream, just so to make it more interesting, and then include him on a split. Probably the biggest call out for the value for value section coming up will be I'd love to get graphics people who are into graphic designs, or strategists perhaps, or promos, or just different ways of incorporating different elements into the podcast. So it's so I can have this more kind of collaborative feel to it. I think that's just something I really want to experiment with the V for V wise, both for the book reviews and for the value for value show. And then this is probably be the biggest farthest out thing. I've kind of hinted at it before, but if those two are going well and I'm doing everything live and I've got as much time kind of as I do at the moment,
Mm.
I would be willing to try out a new podcast and do like a purely fitness show or a purely travel slash language show with you, with just myself. I don't know. Like I haven't thought more about it. Um, the only difference, yeah, just kind of leaning into that everyday live, everyday sort of vibe,
Mhm.
and perhaps with that one, I would go. I would do everything that we never did for these, which is like really focus on SEO, really focus on branding, really focus on how you're going to promote this and that sort of niche. I'd maybe have an attempt at that for a new show and be like, I will do everything like 100% spot on the way you're kind of meant to, and just see how that goes. So just one thing
Yeah.
that's floating in the back of my mind.
Yeah. I mean, my only comment on that though, I think the reality and application of that and the level of funness that comes along with something like that, I would be it would be a cautionary tale. I think that I've seen this play out in a lot of other things that I've done and other people have done, where they'll go, oh yeah, no, if I was to do it again, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it the right way, and I know all these things. And they'll get, I don't know, halfway through preparing it or doing, it, and they go, oh fuck, this is boring. Or "Oh, fuck, there's a reason why I didn't do this in the first place because it's fucking shit, or I don't want to do it, or for some reason they don't enjoy it. So yeah, if you were to do that, it'll be interesting to see how you go into that particular path as well.
I am slightly different than Juan, in which, how often have I talked about a new venture or a new idea? It's
That's
maybe
true. It
like
doesn't happen that
once
often.
every 4 months. So
That is true. That
the
is true.
likelihood of it happening is probably high. But no, I get what you mean, and I have thought very much about diluting and doing different things. But once again, when I just look at the people I really want to emulate, Adam Curry, Chris Fisher, this is how they do it. They've got like 4 or 5 different shows. They're all kind of under a brand. It's like the Adam Curry brand or Jupiter Broadcasting, but the
Mm,
topics are more niche. They do things more suited to that particular audience that they're trying to capture, or not trying to capture, that is attracted to that content. And yeah, I kind of just feel like that's one of the things where it's just something where I think a language or a fitness one just focused on that would be
mhm.
quite up my alley. So once again, no promises, but
Yeah. Okay.
and I
Yeah.
really need to see what's going to happen if slash when the certainty of me traveling is getting higher by the week. Uh, you'll see it in the monthly goals about just exactly what I'm planning for this next month
Mm.
in terms of traveling. But you know, going to Brazil. So for example, this 7 p.m. one, that's 6 a.m. in Brazil. Uh we might have to
It's
change that, man.
late. That's late, man.
I don't know
Jesus,
if I
6
can.
a.m.
I don't know if I'll be in the right state of mind at 6 a.m. to. I'd
6
be
a.m.
willing. I'd be willing to try it out, like at least once. Like I would much rather just keep the 7 p.m. schedule, but yeah, I got to see, man. 6 a.m. It's fucking early.
Yeah. Just to give some the mere more lads at home
Yeah, what'd you wake
some
up today, one?
perspective. Today I woke up at 3:35.
Yeah,
By the time
nice.
6 a.m. rolled around, I was already walking into work. I think I'd had 2 meals by then. Yeah, it was a long way through the day by that point. Um,
I woke up at 8:30 today.
Damn. Now, there's a couple of things though as well. So for the mere morals book reviews, kind of a polar opposite. For me, you're going to see them kind of come out much more quality. Again, more cinematic feel, I guess, or playing around with stuff just because I enjoy that. There's going to be a lot more.
In those, just make sure you mention like, oh, Kyron will get to the boostergrams. It's a hard one because once again, if we're optimizing for the video, should I really be talking about boostergrams in there? Because you can't do it on YouTube. So
Mm.
yeah,
I
I
always
need to
call
think
out.
about that
I'd
more.
always call out towards the tail end of those ones, anyways. That if you want to support X, and that we do
Yeah,
read them out in some of the other book reviews. So
It's more just that's also one of the things with the being able to do the conversations live. I dislike having these gaps between only doing the reading out the boostergrams once, because I know the feeling of boosting into a show and they don't read it out, and it
Mm,
sucks. I hate it.
mm.
And then, you know, if someone's new coming in, they get that, they might not realize, oh, we only do it once a week on these live ones. So that's also what I was thinking about with the interviews or conversations of just at the end of those being like, oh, can you just stick around? I just want to read these out to thank some supporters.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
that's a good point. That's a good point. Just quickly though, on the book review, so you're going to see.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think Currency is going to stick around still with the. You're going to still be doing like live book review. That's
definitely.
sort of 10 a.m. on Thursdays. For me, they're going to be pre-recorded, but I'm actually going to be going to go back to what I used to do quite a while ago. I talked about this already, where for a particular book, I'm going to review it in two different ways. It's going to be one, which is the review, and much more, synopsis, themes, that sort of thing. But there's going to be a second one that I'll also do, which will be much more the quotes, the learnings, the takes from it, examples in real world, that sort of thing. So I'm
So
going to be
like
splitting those up.
what? So into like two separate audios and
Yes,
videos.
correct. Two
Okay.
separate audios and videos. Yep. So
Uh,
tactically, what that'll mean from when I'm doing it perspective, I'm going to be doing it all in one take,
yeah.
pre-recorded, of course, but I'm going to be releasing them as two separate pieces of content.
All right. Yeah, we just need to talk about how we'll put that out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think, so content wise, I'm looking probably to do. I'm hoping to crank it up probably to like 6 book reviews a month. In terms of they
Fuck off, you
double up,
will.
so not 6 books, so it should be like 3 books a month.
I don't
But
believe it.
I've got 5 that
Three
I
a
have in
month.
my.
I do not believe that. That's basically
Neither
what
do I.
I'm doing,
But
man.
I know. Neither do I. But there's a few thin ones that I've got going at the moment. So I've got some in
Oh
backlog as
man.
well, which is the interesting thing. But
Sounds
then
like
for the meme,
you're stretching for content here, people.
but
Doing
then
doing
the
doing a double book review on a thin book. What is that?
I know that's the way to do it. But then the mere
Wow.
mortals in motion. I'm looking at that one. So I'm moving away, and you'll see it shortly from the weekly nature that I was doing with the running face. Yeah, it was okay. Again, I'm kind of going away from what I guess maybe you're orientating your what say from of doing it kind of like weekly, more live. I went, it's kind of nice. However, the way that and again, this is just personal, the way that I've enjoyed watching or seeing other content or listening to things is when there were maybe conglomerated in a bit of a higher level, summarized at a higher level, have more things to kind of play around with. So I'm going to break it down into, at least for the next 12-week phase of powerlifting, it's actually going to be 4 pieces of content. So it'll be the sections: baseline, accumulation, peaking, etc. So it'll just be 4 rather than the 12 that I was doing before. So again, I've called this out. I'm kind of moving more towards a high quality, less output in some regards, but hopefully, better products that I can be happy about, joyful about, and also go, hey, I'm comfortable for this to be truly evergreen, as opposed to honestly, there's some stuff that we've done in the past. I would never personally, like if I was a mere mortal, I'd just never check it again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's I suppose getting to our value for value section. So value for value podcast, we ask for your contribution value back to everything that we're providing here. So the main things that I really want to know from just everyone at home, and send in a boostergram or just out to us directly via any of the socials, or leave a comment on the YouTube video or whatnot. Number one, with all of these different styles that we're doing, if you notice like, oh, this is weird, like I dislike the contrast between a live one which has been released and then one's pre-recorded ones. I dislike that. I dislike the mere mortals in motion, the solo person speaking, versus on the mere mortals generally it's a conversation between one and myself or one and a guest. Like I dislike that. Or vice versa. I really like the contrast. Uh, because we're going to be experimenting with so many different things. We our only way of measuring it is really just based on what you at home do and like. So
Mm.
part of that is just straight up view count or download count of the audio or video, but more weight is put on to people giving suggestions of what they actually think. So would really want to hear from that. The other one as well is just like with my collabs. If you know someone who's a graphic designer, has some sort of skill or talent in something digital related, whatever it is, I don't really mind. I think there's a lot of ways I can incorporate different elements into the value for value show and the book reviews. And they'd be interested in earning some Bitcoin, you know, but put them my way. I did have one guy reach out to me, a voice actor. I sent him an email being like, okay, because he came from a friend recommending him, so
Mm.
he very much came from just like the pure voice acting world, and I was like, I'm gonna try and explain this to you. This is very experimental, super experimental. Read on if you're interested. And then
Mm.
I kind of gave the value for value spiel, how much he could expect to earn in because he was more focusing on the compensation aspect, I think. I haven't heard back from him. I'm not sure if I will, but it was that was a fun interaction to have. So if you've got any normie friends out there who don't know about Bitcoin or value for value, send them my way, and I'd love to try and convert them as well, and
That's good. I like that.
do something on the show. So
Mm.
any call outs for you? Anything you want to ask from the people at home? One.
Just vote in the way that you send your value. If again, we've talked
Thought
about
you were
value
about
for
to say
value.
like vote Labor or vote
No,
vote Republican.
we've talked about value for value for a while, and I still stick to my guns. And we're still quite a few years away from this actually becoming anything from a value perspective. If we were to term it as
Anything close to mainstream for sure.
yeah, and anything close to mainstream, we're so many years away. So, am I really going to be optimizing 100% for a value for value show like a live audio? Like, not really. No, just there's not as much reward in the consistency basis. I could see that we're going to get there, but for those who are tuning in that basis, man, your contributions / your comments, man, they mean like a massive amount to us because in the end, that's what we're targeting, into the future. So, you leading those comments or questions to us now helps us determine what path it is that we take with the mere mortals. So, that's big call. That is, if you vote with your comment, whether it's a Satoshi or not, let us know. It does help us out.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. I do just see. Speaking of the live, Westside Baby was in the chat, just saying hey yeah. So what up to Mr. Westside Baby? And yeah, I think we'll leave it there for today. Mere Mortalites, thank you for tuning into this, and Juan, take it out as usual.
Good. All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. As always, Mere Mortalites, one out.
Karen out. Bye.
Good.